So we need one more member to sign in to have a quorum.
Debbie, did you hear from Guy if he was?
No, you know, I didn't hear from anyone that they were not able to attend. So.
Okay. Who else are we missing other than Guy?
Austin.
Okay.
And Amy.
Is Helene on?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I can only see a line of people down the side.
Oh,
there we go.
I think she got bumped off.
Oh, there we go.
Oh.
There.
Let me just check. No, and I don't have any emails from any members.
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
Is there a courtesy time frame we wait? 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
Well, and actually, I think, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. No, we've got 5.
We do have 5. Okay.
Clara, Scott, Marie, Helene, and Andy. So we are good. Scott, do you want to?
Yeah, you want me to kick it off?
That would be great.
Okay. Let's see here. Okay. In my official role as vice chair, I call the meeting to order. Debbie, can you do the roll call, please?
Yes. Okay, Scott Gilbert.
I am here.
Helene Federici.
I'm here.
Sarah Harkness.
Here.
Marie Hoda.
Here.
Andy Zakaris. Did I get that correct?
Zakaris, close enough. It was an awful last name.
So right now absent, we have Guy Mason, Austin Stryker, and Amy Wilson. We have Jen Hubbard, Inglewood School Liaison.
I'm here.
Staff, we have Christina Underhill and Mark Mullis.
Here.
All right. Did I miss anyone? Anybody jump in? Okay. Thank you.
All right, thanks. If everybody could take a second to look at the minutes from the last meeting and make sure nothing is scandalously wrong. And then I would take a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve them.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
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 Are any opposed? Okay, minutes are approved unanimously. Is there anyone signed in for public comment?
No.
Okay. Then I took my glasses off because they were reflecting so badly. I looked like Mr. Magoo, but now I can't see. Okay, so, oh, I know we also have, when we get to, I suppose it would be old business tonight, since Helene brought up some matters in the last meeting, but she has some updates to discuss on suggestions she made. So let's start with the library statistical report for July, please.
Great. So July, we're continuing on with curbside. So the numbers are going to reflect, a mix of virtual and curbside. So one item there, number of physical visitors, that's counting all of our curbside pickups as physical visitors. I'm not 100% sure how we want to proceed with that statistically. Happy to modify the number, to include or not include those as we decide. Virtual visitors, that's the decrease, and you think that'll kind of be reflected in some of the other statistics that we see. Is as the summer has gone on, I think we're seeing a little bit less activity. People are kind of coming out of their lockdowns and just starting to engage with the library digitally a little bit less. Probably the most interesting numbers here, physical materials circulations about, roughly a quarter of what we'd normally see, which is consistent. That's about the same place we were at last month. Digital material circulation is still up month to month, or it's still up year over year, a little bit down month to month. So we kind of early during lockdown, those digital numbers went higher than they've ever been, and now they're kind of coming back down, still well above normal. But like I said, as people are coming out of lockdown, they're engaged with the library a little bit less. Total circulation a little bit less than half of where we'd normally be. The holds filled number is still looking really good, and that's because everything that's getting checked out is getting done via hold. And so, like I said, I think I said this last month, maybe the last few months, what we're missing is those big checkouts of, the families coming in and checking out 50 picture books. I think that makes a huge difference for us. Probably the biggest change is finally internet computer usage. We have numbers because we've not a ton, but we've started allowing the public back in to use the public computers as long as they're doing so by appointment. The interest there has been not overwhelming, is how I'd frame it. It's actually been significantly less than we anticipated. And that's consistent with what we're hearing from other libraries that have started allowing any sort of appointment-based services, or even reopening generally, is that the demand is lower than we'd expect. We go into it with, and I know for the weeks prior to allowing patrons in for computer appointments, my conversations with staff were really talking them down about, all the and then talking through all the different safety issues, all the different considerations regarding what do we do if, we end up having a bunch of people who refuse to leave the library before the next group comes in, and all that. Really, what we've instead found is at any given time that we have an availability, we have no more than 2 or 3 patrons showing up. The patrons that have been coming have been generally quite respectful of all the safety requirements. Masks are staying on. They're arriving on time. They're exiting on time. So we're probably going to be looking in the next few weeks at trying to ease up some of the restrictions that we had around those appointments to try to get more people in and to continue to try to promote the service, which is tricky because most of our promotional strategies are digital. We're aiming at a community that probably already has computer access, reaching out to the people who can't, aren't visiting our website, aren't visiting our Facebook page, aren't receiving our email newsletter. That's trickier. So we'll be talking about that. Scroll down our programming numbers. This is still in summer reading. So our children's program numbers, I think those attendance numbers are excellent for, given the circumstances that everything moved virtually except for story times in the park. I think we had one teen program that actually was in August. So that's not reflected. And one teen in-person program, that is. So those numbers are almost entirely virtual except for some pretty good numbers from story time at the park. Every session is filling up. I think they're doing 3 time slots, and only the earliest one is taking more than, you know, the first couple of hours to get full. So let's see, our young adult programming numbers are reflecting here the teen and tween virtual hangouts. Still seeing steady attendance of those. And then the in-house adult programs, that's going to be reflecting mostly book clubs. So our book clubs are still, you know, doing pretty well. Those a lot of them are happening outside. And of course we have Books at the Bar, which is happening in person as well. So that's mostly in-person numbers, which is kind of new. So that's fun. Any questions on any of that?
Is your sense that the numbers are low for people turning out for computer appointments because people are generally scared to gather indoors?
I think that would be, as I'm hearing about other libraries, also general. You know, I don't know. I really don't know. I think a lot of it might be lack of awareness of the service, but that's odd because we've been telling people by the phone over and over and over again that this is a service we're providing. People are saying that they're interested. We're taking the registrations over the phone when they want to. I suspect it's just the appointment-based system creates a barrier. I think that if it were when we get to the point of allowing walk-ins, that's just going to change the dynamic very, very quickly. I've heard this consistently from other libraries that are taking appointments for whether it's for computer access or whether it's for browsing the stacks, that when we ask specifically about feedback, people will say it's just not very convenient. And this is when you're pulling the people who are willing to jump through the hoop. And then just overall, the numbers are very, very low. And sometimes people will ask when we say, oh, can I come in and use computers? Yeah, you just have to make an appointment. And then it's kind of like a why bother? But I think, you know, I think it's a great question. And I think it's just totally new territory. We've never charted, you know, we've never had to figure out how people behave in these circumstances. But I suspect it's just the barrier of the process.
Is there any way we can connect with some of the providers that work with, I would say, non-tech connected folks, some of the homeless shelters, some of the transient populations, to make sure that they're informing their client base on our behalf, some of the senior homes, et cetera, to spread awareness? And just second, we're seeing the same thing at the clerk and recorder in Denver's office, that the internet connected folks are the ones that are getting the slots. Mm-hmm. So it's, I'm sure, but is there a way that we can, I don't know, does the city have a text system, a robocall system, some way to engage folks that do not have access to the internet and some of the service providers?
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. There's definitely been, I can tell you just totally honestly, there was a sense early on of hesitation to do anything like that, sure. Because we were concerned, of course, about being overwhelmed. We were concerned about, just inviting, challenges into the, basically not that population, but just how to handle a large group of people. But I think at this point we're recognizing that it's time for us to start beating the drum of, how do we drum up some business. So I think that's an excellent suggestion. I know we have some resources right here in the community, in the city of Englewood, that we need to be reaching out to. So yeah, I'll add that to our to-do.
And it may also be with some of the adult programming. It may be, I don't know how we would do this digitally, but I don't know if it's a resume course or how to search for jobs course, especially in this pandemic with so many folks looking for work. It may be something we could do with some of the resources you've already built while providing some of that stuff with the computer learning to up the adult programming numbers, if we can do some specific around job hunting, or I know like the city's in part of a virtual job fair. How do we prepare people for that? Things like that.
Yeah, I'll talk to Michelle, the adult programming librarian, about that a little bit more. I know we have, we've tried that kind of programming in normal circumstances. You get nothing, just no interest at all. Circumstances may have changed, of course. that's something that I'm very interested in. We actually we have been trying out a few products that would offer sort of program in a box type stuff, or databases that people could access online that have information about job hunting and resume building, that sort of thing. The products we were looking at didn't seem particularly strong compared to the resources that we already had available, but we're looking into. We're definitely interested in that. So let me two follow-ups that Andy, that I think are super helpful. That pretty aligned with conversations we're having internally. Reaching out to local community organizations that serve the populations on the other side of the digital divide, and then also trying to put together programming targeted specifically at people who are looking for job placement or career building, that sort of thing. Anything to help recover economically from what's going on right now. So I'm just making some notes here.
What are other libraries? Oh, I'll wait till you're done. Sorry.
No, please. No, you're good.
What are libraries that are basically reopened all the way reporting?
Well, the libraries that have basically reopened all the way are in very different areas. I mean, the only one that I know of that's in the metro area, of course, like we got Douglas, we got Broomfield, and a couple like that. They're seeing pretty decent attendance. Like I've actually visited Douglas. They're doing well. They're not up to their usual traffic, is my sense of it. I don't actually have access. I haven't heard their numbers specifically, but it sounds like they're doing steady business. Jeffco is partially reopened, but they're limiting the number of people inside, and so they're seeing somewhat basically steady usage, but it hasn't been. Like I was talking to one of Jeffco's managers the other day, and he was saying that they have a card cap on 13 people inside the library at a time, and so most times a day they don't have any kind of a line or anything. That cap is kind of become. They put a lot of time and thought into up front how would they manage the lines, the wait times, kicking people out, after they've 45 minutes or whatever their window was, and that it really hasn't been an issue because the attendance has been fairly low. So that's what I'm saying. I think that the more structural barriers you put in place, just your attendance becomes self-limiting.
That makes sense. Is it Tri-County or the city of Englewood that will set the metrics for when our library starts to look at reopening?
Yeah, so we have numbers from Tri-County, and I'm not sure if those are based on like state requirements or if those are Tri-County specifically, but it's definitely the health department that's letting us know what our space consider, basically a calculator of how many people you can have given your square footage, given the amount of floor space occupied by furniture and shelving, et cetera. And, we're definitely, we've been moving furniture off the library floor, trying to make sure that once we're ready to let people in, we've got as much space available for distancing as possible, and considering the layout of the furniture so that we're not encouraging, people hanging out for longer than they need to, that they're coming in, that it's essentially transactional.
Does anyone have any other questions based around the statistical report? Okay.
Sorry, I have one more. Sorry to be a pain. It looks like the numbers, the income numbers are exactly the same.
Yeah, I just
a
noticed
penny.
that too.
So
I think
just
that
a
might
heads
be.
up on that.
Thank you. I think that might be my error. I was looking at that too, and I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, there's no way that the stars aligned quite like that. I'm pretty sure. So Debbie, I'll send you a correction on that.
Good eye.
Yeah, thanks, Andy.
Okay, then library action plan.
Okay. Oh yeah. I think is this on the old business. I think the teen space. I can't remember. We are now done with summer reading programming. I was working with a couple of our staff members last week, starting to dig into the measurements for shelf space for moving the YA collection. We already moved the graphic novel collection. We've done some rearranging of the new fiction and new nonfiction to make room for. Gosh, where were we at when we talked about this last? We had basically suggested that we want that, I heard the feedback from you all that there was interest in having a teen space and moving the YA collection forward in the library. And we, if you all know where the DVD collection is currently located.
You're breaking up, Mark.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Not really sure what I can do to help that. Let me know when it starts to come in a little bit better.
It's good.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, usually get pretty good Wi-Fi. So let's see. I was saying we moved the graphic novel collection already. We moved that forward near the entrance of the library on the garage side, where the newspapers used to be once upon a time, and I think where part of the large print collection was recently inside the circle. We rearranged the new fiction and the new nonfiction to make some room over by the DVDs, where the DVDs were prior to closing. And that's currently where we're trying to run the numbers to make sure we can move the YA collection into that area. So basically, we're not exactly sure where we're gonna house the DVD collection. We're trying to figure out if we need to physically move some of the existing shelving, or if we're just gonna do a straight swap between the YA collection, which is over at the start of fiction, and the DVD collection, which is between the south side entrance and the circulation area. We figure getting that up front, it's at least on, it's not exactly right by the children's area, but it's on the side of the library that's a little bit safer and certainly more heavily staffed. So we're also looking at converting Altenbach, the meeting room, into a teen space. And so there's a lot of excitement around that among the staff. There's a lot of people that we're looking at. What do we do about paint? What do we do about having an art wall? Maybe some obviously some comfortable furniture. Doing a projector in there for the movie nights that they already kind of do in that room, and then just trying to figure out how to make that really welcoming space for our teens, and then also figuring out policies to make sure that it's only used by the intended population and doesn't just become a hangout destination. So Corinne, Mall, Kimberly, and many of us are kind of putting our heads together and starting to work through all of this. But we're pretty excited about that possibility. Do you want to get any advice, any recommendations, any thoughts?
I think that's awesome. I was about to say that they're used to that room already, so moving their books to that spot sounds perfect, but you have a new idea for the room anyway. That's awesome.
Cool, yeah.
I love it too. I have a teen, and going to the other side of the library was sketchy for her. She did not want to go alone at all. And so I think this is awesome. I think it's a great idea.
Cool, yeah. Biggest challenge with it, honestly, is just the logistics of the shelving. Right now, that shelving that's over there is different from the shelving that's in the rest of the library. It's a little less heavy duty. And so we think we can convert it in such a way that it'll support books instead of DVDs, with books obviously being much heavier and bigger. And so we're going to play with that. If we have to end up physically relocating shelving, it could prove to be a lot more challenging. Certainly, we'll need to get facilities to help us out with that. So I'll give you an update as we kind of firm up the plan. Like I said, this is last week was the first week we really started to make some movement on it. Just because we're waiting on Corinne, who's been running all of our teen programs, to have some time and the ability to contribute to the process. So I didn't want to leave her out of those conversations. So, yeah.
Is shelving that would be heavy duty enough? Are there requirements for its specifications that mean it has to be bought on the market, or is it the kind of thing that people who work like for the city and skilled tradespeople who work for the city could build?
That's a great question. I think it's just a matter of whatever we can put books on safely. And it's we have a fair bit of it in the library. It's very expensive, and of course, doing custom builds would also be quite expensive. And then the most of the shelving that's in the library is fairly modular in that you can move it. You change the way change the height of individual shelves. You can swap in angled shelves versus the flat shelves, backs, non-backs. We have some different options to work with. So I think probably if we ended up having to go in a custom direction, that would be a significant enough cost, either in time or in money, that it would be an option of last resort.
Oh, really? Okay.
Repurposing what we
It sounded
got
cheaper.
is
Yeah.
yeah. I think we have enough that we can repurpose creatively. That I think that's what we'll end up doing.
No bricks and boards.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. Yeah. Okay. Oh, it sounded cheaper to me to have the city make it, but I mean, I was just curious what the cost considerations are.
Yeah. Just a similar update here, just about, you're aware of the fact that we've had, a small handful of our teens and tweens who are participating, and I think this update was from Kimberly, and just feels good about the fact that that core group is stuck with us through the duration of the summer. We think that we'll continue to have engagement with that group, into the fall. But that's a small group, but honestly, I've worked at busier libraries that had fewer. So I think that's a real testament to the staff who build those relationships.
Are there any questions on the action plan?
I think there's another action plan item.
We have a couple more.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, I should wear my glasses next time.
You're fine. So big change in July was the format for curbside pickup, allowing for the easier scheduling. I talked about that last month. We really saw a huge boost early on in the number of pickups per day as a result of that. We were watching it to see if we would have to, basically day to day, we were monitoring to see when we would cut off basically remove the current day or the following day as an option, so that we wouldn't get overwhelmed with 200 pickups on a given day. Never ended up getting quite there, actually. We didn't end up having to do that. I think we peaked at around 60 a day, and it's declined in the last couple of weeks. It's actually, I'm pulling up the numbers now. Load. Sorry. It's declined considerably to the point. I mean, as I said, we peaked around 60. Now we're looking at about 30 a day. So we're gonna once again be looking at how do we redirect some staff time, and how do we start drumming up some more business? How do we start thinking about next steps? I think I expect that going into the fall, once kids are back in school, whether it's remote, in person, or hybrid, that there's going to be just not a lot of activity on this front. So we're definitely considering what we do next in order to try to maintain some presence with the community. But initially, at least in July, it was really successful. I mean, I think the format's more successful. It's just that interest has declined.
Mm.
I mentioned allowing patrons back in the library for computer appointments. Here I talk about the CSL, Colorado State Library Guidelines for areas that are operating under the Safer at Home order. And I'll talk about that. I think we have the reopening update after the action plan update. So happy to, let's put a pin in that one. Okay, so Inglewood history. Yeah, so we're working on Celine Gardner, our technical services librarian, the supervisor for the technical services team, has been working on the digitization projects for the library. Basically, we have a bunch of oral histories that are currently on cassette tapes that we're trying to move into a digital format so that they don't, get lost to time. And so she's been just working with them back and forth, kind of been previewing like their, I don't know, their video production stuff. So it's the intro and the outro and the format and how the captions look and that sort of thing. So hoping to have that done soon.
Now,
Great.
if I remember correctly, the actual recording from the old audio tapes, the physical media, that part is done, right?
Yes, well, I believe so. Like the conversion of it from analog to digital.
Right.
I believe that's correct. So at this
Yeah.
point, it's and to be honest, I'm not super up to date on this project. This is
Yeah.
Celine's. I can follow up on that though.
Oh, I just remember breathing a massive sigh of relief when it was
Right.
done, because I was so
Right.
concerned about the deteriorating physical medium
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah.
Okay, so now it's basically making it ready for public
Yep.
use, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
Did somebody else start to ask a question? I might have cut someone off.
I just have a quick interjection about this project. There are some really interesting online digital timeline programs that you can get. They're very affordable, and they're actually really cool. They're interactive timelines. One is TikTok, it's called. And there's several
Yeah,
out
isn't
there.
that banned? I'm sorry. No, I'm just kidding.
Probably spelled different.
Yeah.
I think it's like a different, yeah. But so that might be an interesting way to display something like this, because it is full of multimedia. And so basically you can have that either like they have them different ways. We can have them linear or like 3D coming at you, and you can just put in a date. It'll put a marker on the timeline, and you just upload the video or the audio, maybe some pictures, a description, and then just do another entry. And what's cool about it is that as the library evolves into the future, periodically we could revisit what events to add for this year and keep it like an ongoing record as well. And anything else that gets digitized has a home as well to belong to, and it could be a really interesting digital feature on the website.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thought. So you said TikTok was one.
Yeah, and you might want to add some words like timeline or whatever to get the right TikTok, because it is a different spelling.
No, I understand.
Yeah. And there's others. I haven't worked with the others, but I did a pretty extensive project using TikTok. And I had the developers customize the software for me even. And if you are interested, I could reach back out and see what kind of deal they could give us for the same product, because what I had them do was integrate social media into the events. So you could post stories from the events to social media, and so that wasn't like an original function of it. So yeah, just let me know if that's something that you want me to like reach out to them about.
Yeah, I think we'd certainly we'd certainly be interested. Yeah, I'll want to follow up on that for sure. Thanks, Lee.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, security associates. So this is something we've been working on internally, is the idea of how do we handle security issues in the library. Major piece of feedback that we're getting from our patrons, of course, has been that they want the library to feel safe. And of course, we, the staff, feel very strongly the same way. For the last few years, as you're all aware, the library has contracted with G4S, private security provider. We've had mixed results. Some of the guards that we get through that contract have been very, very good, and they've stuck around a while. Some have been much less so. And so this is something that many of our neighbors have brought in-house, largely on the same trajectory. They start out by contracting with private security. Over time, they start to get a good sense of what they need from that job. And then eventually develop that as something that's done in-house. So we're considering doing the same. We talked to some staff who have some experience with that, who've actually done that job over at Denver, I've been talking to the manager of facilities and securities over at Jefferson County, and some staff who've done the same over at Arapahoe libraries. Kind of getting a big picture of what sort of the training requirements are, what the job expectations are, and then talking to our team internally about, you know, what would we need from such position. You know, the advantage of bringing it in-house, of course, is it's a library employee, so it's much easier to train them on the specific expectations for the library, to have consistency, and to make sure that they're, you know, operating with our organizational values in mind. And also, because they're a library employee, they would be able to contribute in ways that the current security guards are not. So they'd be able to access user records, provide basic, you know, customer service assistance, that sort of thing. And so this would be, we're going to start, we're starting to work with HR on possibly posting 2 20-hour positions, replacing 2 of our outgoing library associates. And so these staff members, the vision we have for it is that they would be, if you know where the standing staff pod is, near the north entrance to the library, that the security associate would be stationed there. They would monitor both entrances, north and south, and then they would make a periodic patrol of the library, just to look around for code of conduct violations or anyone who's having any sort of challenges inside the library. And so they'd be able to provide, as people enter the library, they'd be a greeter, they'd be watching for, you know, potentially dangerous behaviors, oversized bags, any of the things that use, like, you know, problematic hygiene, that sort of thing. And so we you know, the emphasis here is being able to, like I said, make the library a safer place for all of our users, and also to be able to approach code of conduct issues very empathetically. Really, you know, trying to emphasize a spirit of service and understanding that some of our most recurring code of conduct issues are things like eating in the library, sleeping in the library, that sort of thing. And they're really behaviors that are associated with, you know, marginalized populations. And those aren't things that we want to police just because we don't want those people in the library. That has, you know, that's not it at all. We want to police behaviors because we need to make sure that the library is safe and clean for all of our users. That we're thinking about doing this initially to replace 2 of our library associate positions. So initially, this is not replacing the G4S contract, but that's something that if we feel that this is working the way we think, that we might want to move in that direction, you know, or down the road, so that we would move all of our security to these sort of associate positions that are a hybrid of doing the job of the current G4S security guards and some of the work that's being done by the library associates. So just wanted to loop you all in on that idea and see if you had any thoughts or any feedback.
I think it's an excellent idea. I mean, security is a huge, huge, huge issue at the library. And having people who recognize the repeat offenders would be really helpful. I know that when City Council was paying off-duty police officers to be in the area security, it was a lot better. And part of it had to do with that they knew who was there. They knew everyone who was hanging around. They knew what issues they had. And so I think that consistency of having some people in the library who know who's coming in will help a lot.
Yeah. It's interesting, you know, you mentioned the time when we had the off-duty police officers. You definitely, security, it's very different. Whether if it's a badge police officer, it's very different from if it's a security guard, whether they're wearing a G4S uniform or whether they're wearing a polo shirt that says City of Englewood. You know, obviously we wouldn't want, I think our observation is when the police do walkthroughs, the library can clear out. And you know, a lot of people who don't want to be in a policed environment will leave, and that sometimes, and that you know, I think there have been times where that's been helpful, you know, when we've had challenging periods, but at the same time, we're really cognizant of not over policing the library. You know, we don't want to make the space feel unsafe for people who are not violating our code of conduct in any way, but are still somewhat intimidated by the idea of being too closely monitored or too, you know, aggressively monitored. And not saying the police were doing that, but I think that just the presence sometimes can be intimidating to some people. And so it's a fine line. And we certainly, we're emphasizing de-escalation. You know, we're emphasizing the idea that this is really about monitoring behaviors, about challenging or about confronting code of conduct violations right as they happen, so that the behavior doesn't become routine. And then if we need to escalate, we have the support of dispatch. You know, we have the support of being able to call in police, but we're not, you know, going to be the ones, you know, engaging in any sort of physical confrontation with patrons. So another piece of this is we are getting a bid for all staff members currently have a key card on the lanyard, or, you know, some kind of key card for accessing staff areas. We're thinking about doing the same, basically installing a buzzer system for the bathrooms, because we've had a lot of code of conduct violations, drug use, transactions, bathing, stuff that's, you know, challenging behaviors inside the bathrooms. And so we're gonna start with a bid, see what it would cost, the possibility of adding a key card reader on those doors, and then having a buzzer at that security station, so that somebody who wants to use the bathrooms on that side of the library would need to be buzzed in. I'm really curious to get feedback about that, because it's been a complicated conversation internally. You know, there's some serious pros and cons to that. So if you have thoughts on that. Cons would be that anytime you create a barrier of access of any kind, you know, it's something that doesn't sit super great with, you know, librarians. Like we want to be as welcoming as possible, and I think certainly as a user I would feel that that's somewhat less welcoming than a place where I could just walk into the restroom. I think that there's some, is it the right thing to do sort of ethically to create a barrier around that? And there's some conversation around, is it going to lead to a lot more just management required by staff? So like every time somebody wants to use the restroom, a staff member has to get involved. You know, the two ways we'd be able to let people in would be to either, as a staff member, walk them over there and hit the key card reader and let them in, or most of the time I think they'd be going to the security station and getting buzzed in. It's not, you know, it's inconvenient, and I think that would be inconvenient for staff, and it would be inconvenient for a lot of our users. But the pro, of course, is that we have a lot of people who come in straight off the, whether it's straight off the light rail or whether it's just straight in from the parking garage or whatever, and they just come straight into the restroom, and then sometimes we lose track of them, and that's often where we have some problem behaviors associated with people who are not there, who are not using the library as anything other than the most convenient space where you can go and close the door behind you, that's frankly along the light rail. We're right off the light rail. You can walk in, you can shut yourself in, and we see challenging behaviors associated with that.
Do you have any concern? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, one thing that comes to mind is that it would also be really inconvenient for the staff to have to enforce anything that is happening. And so maybe the security associate might be responsible for letting people in and out and monitoring it in general.
Yeah.
Is that the idea?
I think it would have to be, yeah, because one of my thoughts on this is that anytime you create it, you make it more difficult to get in, that also makes it more private. Because somebody who does get in has a little bit more assurance that nobody, you know, it's less likely that somebody's going to come in right after them. You might be making the space feel more secure for problem behaviors and keeping out, you know, otherwise compliant behaviors. We can install a movement sensor, because you obviously can't install a camera in a restroom, but we install movement sensors. But unfortunately, those movement sensors I don't think are going to be of much value to us, because it turns out that they are sensitive enough and they can detect people through walls. And so if somebody is browsing the large print collection on the outside of the men's restroom, it's picked up on the movement sensor as movement inside the restroom. So it's going to require the staff to kind of keep an eye on who's coming and going. And so that's definitely for me, probably one of the biggest cons.
Mm-hmm. I could see that.
I know that King Soopers moved to that model. I wonder if they would have any feedback or anything about how that's been working for them.
That's a really interesting. I've been looking in library land for feedback, but yeah, talking to places like King Soopers might really be the ones who can give us some insight.
You're right, though. That's really complicated.
Yeah.
Too bad.
so-
I can't just move your bathroom.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's secondary to. I mean, the security associate's position I think is much farther along than that idea. So I don't want to just distract too much with that one, but just throwing it out there.
I just had a question.
Oh, go on.
Oh, I just had a question about the security outside of the library. That's mainly like I've seen weird things in the bathroom at the library, but I've never felt like uncomfortable inside the library. But walking into the library is sometimes uncomfortable. I've been like heckled and harassed, and so I'm just wondering, is that some security something that the library for outside is responsible, or is that just the city takes care of that?
Well, part of the G4S contract that we've had is that those guards do some monitoring of activity inside the Civic Center more generally. And so that's something that's part of why we're not starting with moving straight past, or, is one of the many reasons we're not jumping right past the G4S contract, because we do need to make sure the Civic Center has some sort of security. But of course, that's not round the clock. I mean, currently we're able to provide, the G4S contract is providing security for the Civic Center building during the Civic Center's open hours, but that's just because of COVID. It's just because those hours were reduced. Prior to COVID, that there was not, the library security was there some of the time, but not all the Civic Center's open hours. And so it's something that is in the scope of the contracted security, but it's not fully covering that time.
Okay.
Do you have any security concerns with the potential change of removing armed security off of RTD and replacing them with social workers, being it's a hub stop?
I don't think, actually, tell me more about that. This is, I've heard, this is kind of new to me. Go ahead.
I'll send it over. I know Chantel Lewis and a couple members of RTD are looking to remove armed security completely from RTD and terminate that contract and replace them with trained social workers.
Interesting.
And so not exactly sure how fair collection in that would work, but if they are chasing people off of the train and no way to detain or ticket, I would think that the library is the first stop to get away from said social worker. So just something to keep an eye on with that. And I would, with bathrooms, I would just make sure I would worry about an ADA concern.
Thank you. Yes, ADA concerns. Yeah, very much on that. Yeah, thank you. That's an excellent. That's something that did come up in my conversation with our facilities team. So, but as far as the RTD stuff goes, I'll be really interested to see if they end up going in that direction, how that works, because I could see it going either way. Like I could see it creating the challenges of them not being able to intervene in some potentially dangerous situations, but it could also help to, direct people to the services that are appropriately aligned to their needs. So we'll see. Yeah.
I would say as someone who's lived in Englewood a long time, and I've raised kids here, I have grandkids now, and frankly, I'm just getting older and less tough. I think security, like Sarah said, I think security is just a really important thing, and a feeling of being secure in the library, feeling that it's a safe place to go and take families and stuff. And I mean, frankly, somebody who's not who feels like they're not in a good space if a cop walks through, I'm not going to get all choked up about that, frankly. You know, I'd rather have people with young kids feel safe, old people feel safe, women feel safe, men feel safe.
It's
know,
a tough, I hear you. It's a tough balance, but I appreciate that perspective. I think it's, you know, that's the challenge for us, is to provide a welcoming and safe environment without, you know, making people who really need the library services feel unwelcome. Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah, I think that, it would be an easy adjustment though also, because I agree that with small kids that the circle is sometimes the more uncomfortable place for me. I think that like just looping the police department into the fact that like you're changing your security methods, which I'm sure you would do.
Yeah.
We're not trying to like over police, but looping them in that like we're changing things all around. Yeah. Maybe we need you more out front. That's all it's going to take, I think.
Yeah.
And I also think that directing people like, I didn't even know how to get in from the parking garage for a really long time. I only went from the circle. That was just me like being stuck in my ways. But I think reminding people that that's an option, which now that you're doing the curbside there, I think more people will be comfortable coming in from, especially with families. So yeah, I think that it'll balance out okay personally.
Yeah. And this actually kind of all got initiated with based on a conversation that I had with Inglewood Police Department a couple months back, and the bathroom thing that I mentioned is specifically a recommendation of theirs. So yeah, we'll be keeping in touch with them as this develops. We reached out to them a few weeks ago to talk about possibly some sort of self-defense training for these security associates, and you know, kind of what their recommendations are. So yeah, we'll be as this progresses, they'll definitely be in those conversations.
One other thing I would just ask, if we're going to be doing security, we should make sure that the security associates, we at least try to recruit Spanish speakers.
Excellent suggestion. Yeah.
And just make sure that's prevalent in the job posting.
Yeah, thank you.
I can't tell, am I jumping the gun to think that we're done with that topic?
I think we're good.
Okay. Yeah. No other questions?
Your call.
Okay. I just didn't know if there were any other questions on it. Okay. Okay. Old business. Reopening of library update.
Yeah. So not a whole lot new that I haven't mentioned already. Right now, we received draft guidance from Colorado State Library that I mentioned earlier around where public libraries roughly should be given, whether they're operating under stay at home, safer at home, or protect our neighbors. So this isn't finalized yet. The Colorado State Library is seeking feedback from public libraries around this draft guidance. But I can tell you that where we're at is very consistent with what is recommended in that document. Basically, specifically under safer at home, which is, you know, moderate COVID-19 incidents in the community, they recommend that public libraries continue remote services for all basic patron needs, remote reference, e-materials, virtual events as possible, curbside service by appointment when possible with strict safety measures, delivery service of library materials when possible with strict safety measures. Megan Kennedy, our circulation access services supervisor, is working on trying to get our homebound going again, homebound deliveries. Limiting the building access and arranging indoor spaces for the public to accommodate for recommended social distancing and mask wearing requirements. And computer use sessions by appointment when possible, limited by overall capacity. They also recommend browsing library shelves by appointment, so that's something that we're considering as we try to figure out what the next steps are. And so, yeah, I feel like, you know, I look at where our neighbors are at. Denver still has no announcements of when they're planning to reopen their facilities. We're trying to, you know, get whatever information through the grapevine we can from them. Arapahoe is about in the same place we are, that they're offering 45-minute computer appointments and curbside services, and then pretty much everything else is either, you know, virtual programs or digital materials access. So I feel like we're correctly in line with our neighbors. I take COVID-19 very seriously. I personally am, you know, wanting to make sure that we're actively providing service to the community, and I occasionally want to push the gas pedal a little bit. And I know our staff is certainly wanting us to take things very slowly and very cautiously. So it's a balancing act. So I'm very curious always to hear your feedback about where things are at. But we're probably you know, still a little bit away from being able to fully reopen the library, just based on the fact that our neighbors aren't really there either. And until it's hard to move without Denver moving too, because we know that we're going to see some displacement of use to us if we open before they do. But at the same time, I don't want to wait for them. It's a weird spot to be in, and it's getting weirder as the months go on.
Any questions?
I support. I think everything's going really well. I think that, you know, to urge business is the right move. Like, urge people, the community, to be using the curbside. And I think if you can get deliveries going, that would be incredible.
So more promotion of the existing services.
I think we've been talking about promotion for like a year and a half, and I feel like something needs to happen. I really like the next door idea, getting some graphics or something, because I think, like, when you're using something like Facebook, you're only speaking to the audience that you have.
Yeah.
You're getting like, you know, 10 likes on things, and something needs to happen external, so that, because I think that the community would appreciate the support.
Yeah.
But
newsletter has been huge for us, and I know that's getting a ton of traction, and we're getting a ton of engagement with that. So it turns out, who knew, old-fashioned email way more effective than social media. So that's something that we're, you know, that was previously being done by Michelle, but I moved that over to Megan last week, because she's very interested in taking it over, making it a regular thing, and kind of setting, you know, deadlines for staff to submit materials so that we can have it out at a consistent time. So yeah, that's something that, seeing how successful it's been, that we're going to take more seriously. I'm actually I sent out we're working for the last few weeks to promote the book club that's being done by Mayor Olson, the council member Wing Fee, on Ibram Kendi's book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. And when we put it on social media, we even, I know our communications department did a paid boost on social media to try to get some engagement with that. And we had, you know, sign up around, you know, 12, 16 people. We put out the newsletter, and by, you know, the end of the day, the next day, we had 75 people signed up. So like, that was clear. Like, it was just fascinating to see how quickly the level of engagement, you know, changed, just based on finding the right way to promote something. So that's something I'm very interested in. But the challenge, of course, is promoting to your people who aren't your current users. So yeah, it's something, we'll keep talking about, and we'll keep exploring, you know, like it's a work in progress.
I have something to add to this. One of my updates, when we spoke about this last month, one of the issues was that computer users wouldn't be able to get the support that they're used to from library staff members because of social distancing. And I said I would look into some free remote desktop apps.
Please.
I found a lot of free remote desktop apps, but I only have one that I'm recommending at this time, because it has to be sort of looked into at your end as well. And that's Microsoft has a free, it's called Microsoft Remote Desktop. It's a free app that's compatible with their operating systems. And you also have Microsoft support for it if you need help either setting it up or anything like that. So I don't know anything about the computers at the library, but if it's compatible, it could be a really good solution so that those users can get something closer to what they're used to, even with the social distancing.
Okay, I appreciate that. I'll talk to our IT department about it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Did you have another topic, Helene?
I do. It's the the free e-learning courses. So we had talked about that. That's really kind of like a supplement B. It kind of fits into there, I think. But I found more resources than I even imagined were out there. Even Harvard University has free e-learning courses that you can take. And some of the universities offer credits, and they have varying degrees of how much the professors support the free programming. There's international programming for adults that offer American college credits. And there are countless K through 12 resources, including accredited ones as well. So while I was working on the list, I realized with so many resources available, maybe the best way to approach it, if it interests you, is to qualify it and make real recommendations. And at first I thought there'd be some resources and we would throw them up, right? But because there's so many and some of them are so high quality, like there's resources for business owners about how to do payroll and how to manage this or whatever. There's resources for people starting nonprofits, and they're all really high quality online e-learning courses. So maybe what we could do is actually put some effort into putting together a recommended list that would serve our community. Because think about it, if we go through another wave in the fall, or even if people are just hesitant to go out, and even if we all go back to normal, in any of those case scenarios, if we give our community these really well-vetted recommendations that could enrich their lives, their businesses, children, families, all of it, we would be really offering a service, I think, to offer like a well-vetted list of these opportunities. Based on some of the stuff I read, I think you could get a BA for free online right now. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. I didn't realize that. So like, think about how many people would be like, really, I could get a bachelor's degree for free online. You know, maybe it takes them 6 or 7 years, but who knows who inside our community would really respond to that, and how that would change their lives and enrich our community further at the same time. So I have my list, but I stopped after like 40 resources and realized that I wanted to start actually examining them closer and vetting them.
That's really cool. I'd love to see the list. I'd love to talk about this more. So yeah, let's exchange emails for sure. I'd love to, or at least set up however you want to proceed. I think that definitely, so we've been working, this is probably a subject for next month. I was hoping to have it for this one, but we've been working on a redesigned website internally. And that seems to be, fingers crossed, very close to moving forward. And compiling resources that are freely available, whether it's related to education, whether it's related to jobs, whether it's related to computer skills. It's all very much the kind of our vision for it is to be a hub of good resources and see where we get engagement. And that actually kind of ties into the next item about homeschooling and education support. But yeah, thank you for that. I would love to see that and talk more about that. I think it's really cool.
I'll share with you. It's on a Google Doc now, and I'll share it with you.
Very
I just think we'll need to strategize like how to vet, or what we're looking for, category, or just some kind of little strategy going at it, because there's that much to sort through.
Yeah, interesting.
What are you seeing, Helene, as far as like in your personal vetting of them so far? Are you seeing like a big difference in like the quality of the course, or the user friendliness, or the what sort of criteria are you coming up with in your thinking?
Well, almost all the universities now are offering some kind of courseware, and what I'm seeing is that some of them do not offer any supplemental material. Others will offer some of the syllabus and the supplemental material you'll find in the course, and others will even offer some access to the professors or teaching assistants, and it's all free. So, and some of them are better name brands than the others, like Harvard. So I think that if we were to pick like a collection of college level resources, we would want to pick ones that are either have a higher brand name and or have higher levels of support, and maybe be able to write like a sentence or two about the resource and let the patron know that this resource offers access to professors, additional content, related to the course. When it comes to, there's international resources as well that I think are interesting, that probably need explaining too, but could also be offered. I think it's really something the library staff could be hugely instrumental in, because I think that the library staff knows the patrons better than I do. And so there's probably a lot of wealth of information to take to sorting through it. But there are definitely varying degrees of quality. And also for the K through 12, a lot of those resources are accredited where you can get high school credits. So there's a whole bunch of issues that come into play there. Do we want to be promoting some other credits within our school system? Or if we do, potentially, do we want to see if those credits would be accepted by our school system prior to making that, having that as a resource? I really don't know. I'm out of my depth with it. But the good news is that there is endless resources for e-learning and online learning and courseware that can really add value to our community if we collect it and sort through it and vet it and present it in the best way.
Yeah. Were any of you here when we were doing Career Online High School? Does that sound familiar?
No.
No. Okay. Because a couple years back, we were doing a program called COHS, Career Online High School, and it was a thing where you could get basically a program that you could work through and get a high school diploma, not a GED, but an actual high school diploma. We had some traction with it, some success, and I was just not sure if any of you could kind of finish the story of what happened to that, because when I left in 2018, I thought that was going pretty strong, and then it seems to have fallen off. So anyway, just thought I'd ask the question, but thank you.
There wasn't enough pandemic, I don't think, in 2018.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah.
It was ahead of its time.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's great though. I'm really curious to see where this goes. I love that e-learning idea.
Yeah, well, the challenge is always you have these ideas of stuff that sounds very cool, and then it just gets very low engagement. And so the challenge is always to figure out how do you build engagement. Sometimes it's finding the right way, like you said, to connect it to the right audience. That's why knowing your patrons is so critical. And sometimes it's just that you have to be really honest about what the user behaviors are. What are people looking to the library for? And what are they, and when are we just an afterthought, or when is it that we're kind of shouting into the void a little bit? Because I think I'd love to figure out how we can be systematic about making stuff like that a success. And I think a lot of times it's just finding the right material and then connecting it to the right audience.
Well, I could see that being a portal, even in isolation, is a good idea. I think just being a place where people could even find where to, because I wouldn't know. I mean, gosh, you found like 40 options so far on e-learning. I mean, one of my two of my clients actually are in e-learning, and it would take me a month to come up with 40. That's amazing. And just a portal that even offered people access to that kind of menu would be a step toward being a service to the community, in my opinion.
I think there's something to that. I think the challenge, one of the things I find consistently helps is to always find a way to tie it back to your local community, because otherwise you're competing with the entirety of the internet. And I always want to find that local angle, because that's what makes Englewood Library unique. Otherwise you're just, you're trying to put together the ultimate resource list, and that would be great, but I don't know that, you know what I mean? There's the local angle is usually what helps to make something like this of greater value.
I think setting the list addresses that in a similar way, because putting everything up, you would lose me if I had to sort through just whatever opportunities. But if there was if every opportunity was intriguing, then that becomes a real resource. So I think that there's value in the vetting.
That's interesting. Yeah, no, I think that makes sense.
I think there's a lot of validity to making sure you have the resources in the right place so you reach the people. So redesigning the website, I think, will be a huge boost. I was thinking of some educational apps that I know of for kids that are free that a lot of people just don't know about, and they're awesome, but maybe not even having them all in the same place, like having, here's a kids page and here's a few apps you can use, just like 3 to 5, not overwhelming, and then here's some books we recommend, like just a few things per page, I think would be pretty useful. I think I can see being overwhelmed by too much information in one place and not even knowing how to process it, but I think what you're saying about making sure it's in the right place and just having some limited resources could be useful.
And it would probably be useful, like if it's possible for the library to purchase some of those books, like additional copies for this year, the next, like, I don't know how quickly that comes in, but some of those homeschooling books. I don't know. I feel like every like random book that I've plugged into the thing has been turned down. So maybe
Oh, really?
to like the materials request, but
That's fun.
so I don't know if that's,
like,
yeah,
in terms
just
of
me.
Well, if we're squared away on Mark and Helene emailing on the e-learning, is everybody ready to move on to the homeschooling portion?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
If,
anyway,
if
thank
I
you.
can,
yeah.
Scott, if I can note, Guy Mason joined at 7 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
we didn't start at 7, huh?
No, sorry. Hi, Guy.
Sorry, guy.
Okay. Okay. Anyway, it sounds like there's like a plan to move forward on the getting the resources between Helene and Mark on the e-learning. So if we're ready to move on to homeschooling educational support, Mark, what's your presentation there?
Oh, so I just wanted to give you all the update that you know, that Kimberly has definitely been working on this. She'd be really curious to hear additional ideas that you'll have. We had a staff member who had to quarantine for a few days, so she was doing various things from home, including, you know, starting to put together some resources here. So on our current website, we do have a page up now, and I know that Kimberly, let's see what she most recently said about this. Basically that, oh shoot, I lost it. But they're going to be promoting some resources over the next few weeks now that they're moving past summer reading. And so keep an eye out for that. We really want to get your feedback. Definitely go check out that page that's up on the website and give us some guidance, you know, give us some thoughts on what would be helpful to see there. Any resources that you have that you recommend. We're wanting to do this right, and it's just in its infancy, but we wanted to get the page up because, like I said, starting, I believe she said Friday, she's going to start putting some stuff out there, in whether it's in social media, reaching out to individual families, and that sort of thing. So I probably don't have 10 minutes worth of content on this one, just to say that we're hearing you loud and clear now that we're past summer reading. That's something that we're taking very seriously.
I saw your page.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And yeah.
But I saw your page and I also saw your Facebook post, and it's really
okay.
Excellent start. And I'm happy to share some. I searched your collection one day to look up popular curriculums, and while the Inglewood Library doesn't have a lot of them, they're available interlibrary loan, and they're actually like story-based math. And so I'd be happy to share a list with you guys too.
Please do.
Interested. Okay, I'll just email.
That much more relevant in a couple weeks here when we get Prospector up and running. So that, and then it won't be interlibrary loan. Then it'll be pretty much just a standard materials request, and it'll take a little bit longer to arrive. It'll be like requesting something from a Marmot library, but we'll have a much bigger access. And I know that we're kind of looking at what we have and looking to make additional purchases to make sure that we have the materials to support this, so that we don't run into the situation that Marie's describing where everything is checked out. Yeah, so
Um,
the first list that was sent to me by a staff member was, here's stuff that we have available now. And it's like, that's great. This list is going to be outdated like in 24 hours, but I appreciate, I think this is a great start.
So I had another idea that maybe like way too much of a stretch that you don't want to embark into, and I would totally understand that. But I think that it would be super beneficial to potentially think about having like a library adjacent Inglewood parents Facebook group that could just be like, hey, we're new to homeschooling, we're in this community, like just like a bouncing off ideas. I think you just need someone to moderate it, and that would be the trouble.
What would you envision the library's role being in that?
I think that the library would be the community that would just like support that.
Okay.
You know, like be promoting it, advertising it, something like that. You would have to have a moderator who could potentially be from the library, or like, I don't know, I could do that. I moderate other Facebook groups, but I think that just having like, one of Sarah's concerns from what I've been hearing is like, we need resources. Well, I think one of the best resources is other parents. And I think that there are all these like homeschool groups that are established, but that has people who know things and aren't figuring it out and aren't in the weeds freshly. So I don't know. This was just a very like quick idea, and you would probably want to think about it more. But
well, and the nice thing about the library being involved is, we have this sort of neutrality. So that, Sarah, do you think that would be of some value? Just, I know this is.
I don't know. I actually started a group on Nextdoor for homeschoolers. I was mainly just wanted to go to the park sometimes in the middle of the day and see not just little kids. So that was my main reason for starting it. And within like 3 days, there was 30 people who joined, and 90% of them are either brand new to homeschooling, or they're doing online schooling, or they're just not sure what they're going to do yet. And so basically I've just been posting almost everything, giving them resources and trying to help guide them through it. And it's been helpful in understanding what people's concerns are. A lot of people are worried that their kids are going to fall behind doing online school, so they're trying to figure out tutoring, things like that. I don't know if the library potentially would be the place to do the Facebook group, but I think it would be awesome if it was parent driven. Like, I think that would be awesome.
Like advertising
from
the library. Like, I don't know if maybe Sarah, you'd be willing to like open that beyond too, because I just think that that's probably, from my perspective, that would be where the library could come in.
I think that's a great suggestion. And Sarah, that's really cool that you started that. I think that's a really just wonderful idea.
And that's a question I had too. I know everything's different in the pandemic and it limits opportunities, but pre-pandemic, I know the library did offer tutoring. So I'm just wondering if that's something you guys are still doing. I think it was through Varsity Tutors. I don't know if I'm just making that up, but I remember there was some kind of tutoring program.
I don't know what with my tenure here not reaching. There wasn't anything back when I was here previously. I don't know if it's happening immediately prior to the pandemic. I know we have private tutors who are eager to get back into the library to use our space, and that's actually one of the things. We're talking about reopening. That's probably one of the immediately upcoming phases, just to start allowing private use like that of the library again. But as far as the library partnering with a group, I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
I know that's a significant need right now is tutoring. So that's an interesting area to explore.
I have a question, Sarah. You were, just before we sort of casually segued into the homeschooling, you were saying something about education apps.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of free apps that I think that are actually game-based. They're fun, kids love them. They have them for reading, science, math, everything. I think when I see these micro schools popping up and parents are paying for tutors, I think of our population in Inglewood. We're very economically diverse, but we also have a lot of people who that's just out of reach for them. That's out of reach for our family too. So I think maybe just what I was thinking is if you had like a kids page on the library and you could just break it up by different age groups, and just have a few resources, like these are some free game apps you can get for your kids, or maybe even offer them on the library computers. But that could be a way to help support some families who can't necessarily afford a lot of money, and who are mainly the people I'm thinking about are the people who are sending their kids are going to school, but they're going online, but they're just really worried about it. So I think it would be a benefit to all kids. But I can definitely send a
please
link.
send them along.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, very curious.
Anyone else want to pitch in on the homeschooling educational support topic?
While you're looking at free apps, maybe we could add some free SAT, ACT prep apps as well, because that's another like really expensive tutoring that people can't really afford.
That's interesting. My SAT prep consisted of staying up all night partying, but I think kids are a little more serious about it now.
You just made a case for the apps.
Yeah. Okay, if there's no more on that, did we already cover YA collection and teen space, or is there more to go on that, Mark?
I think we covered it.
Yeah. Okay. And we got Helene's topics that she emailed in about. So I think we are at the point of staff's choice.
Christina. My choice is to let somebody else talk.
I'll give you a break, Mark. Take that now. It's good seeing everybody, and thank you for all the ideas. I think they're amazing ideas, and that's why we have this board, is to help with stuff like this. So thank you for that. This came out, Inglewood Citizen. It's our pandemic guide, so it talks a lot about what we have going on in Parks Recreation Library and everything. Pirates Cove is open this week if you want to get to the water park during the week. We have a couple time slots from 10 to noon and 1 to 3 that we're doing. For just this week only, we found out all the high schools were delayed in reopening, and so we were able to keep some of the guards a little longer. So if you want to take your kids there, it is open. It is clean, it's safe, only 250 people at a time are allowed in. So that's all I've got. Thanks for all being here, and it's good seeing you.
Hey, thanks, Christina. I mentioned earlier the book club that Mayor Olson and Councilmember Wink are doing. If any of you are planning to are interested in participating in that, we're at the point of taking a wait list because our response was so overwhelming. But we're gonna have to break it down into small breakout rooms. Basically, it's being done by Zoom webinar, so it's gonna be logistically challenging. We are definitely maybe I shouldn't be offering, but if anybody wants to facilitate a small group discussion, I think we're going to be possibly looking for facilitators. I'm not entirely sure about that. It's going to depend on Mayor Olson and Councilmember Wink's guidance on that. But if that's something that you might be interested in, then let me know. I think it's going to be a really cool event. So yeah.
Okay. That's it then for staff choice. Board member choice. I can't see everybody, so I'm afraid I'll leave somebody out. I can see Sarah up at the top. There we go. Thank you. Okay. Why don't we start with Sarah?
Well, speaking of Pirates Cove, we did go there this summer, and I just want to say that you actually created the most perfect experience for me as a parent. I love being limited, that my kids are limited to 2 hours, because that's exactly my time limit. And I love that there's no lines. It's seriously like my dream for Pirates Cove. I've heard a lot of people complain, like, I'm not paying that much for 2 hours, but I think it's awesome. And I love
that is good feedback. Thank you. And we have heard that from a lot of parents, like 2 hours is their max any day. So it's nice there's a cap.
Like, let's go. I didn't decide this. They said.
That's great. Let me see. Jen.
Not a whole lot going on other than trying to get schools open. As so far, we are planning on opening in person to those families that want it. We do have an online option for parents who don't want to send their kids. It is all staffed by Englewood teachers, so that's not a separate school or anything like that. It is all staffed by Englewood staff. School's supposed to start on August 27th. We are using a data model in order to determine whether we open school or not. And when we go to what they're calling rolling remote, which is when you're in school and then you have to go to rolling remote, which means the cases are too high, or the data model shows, yeah, things are getting a little scary, so we need to go back online. Everybody goes online instead of just the families that chose 100% online. So the schools and the teachers are working incredibly hard to try and come up with cohorts to kind of group kids in smaller groups, so that if somebody does get sick, you only have to quarantine this many kids instead of the whole school. Unfortunately, as I'm sure Mark, the guidance, nobody has the guidance, and you get it last minute, and then they don't really give you much guidance. It's like, well, here are the rules, figure it out. And trying to do all that work is mind numbing, but the teachers and the principals and everybody they're up for the challenge. And so far so good. But hopefully we'll see kids walking in the door on the 27th. We'll see.
Well, I think everybody's in support of the schools doing whatever they have to do. So good luck. Keeping my fingers crossed for you. Andy?
Nothing on my end.
Okay. Marie?
We've been living for story time in the park. Love it. It's the best. We've gone to every single one. And yeah, my kids are just screaming Hamilton lyrics nonstop. So I don't know what's going on, but they're yelling it at 2 and 4.
Cool. Helene?
Nope, I'm good, thank you.
Hi.
I'm good. Thank you for hosting, Scott.
Oh, sure. Yeah. You're certainly welcome to take it back next week. No
I had my calendar wrong, I guess. So
Yeah.
sorry, everybody.
Not much going on with me. Just glad my air conditioner turns down to 64. I've been keeping it right there all the time. My happy place is when I have to wear like a sweater inside the house. So that's where I am. So I guess, unless anybody has anything else, adjourned. Thank you very much. It was good seeing everybody.
Thanks.
Everybody.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.
Thank you. Bye.